Long before the rise of Rome, before the philosophers of Greece etched their wisdom into stone, and even before the first written stories of mankind, there existed a civilization that seemed to emerge from the sands as if born from the gods themselves. It was a world of towering monuments, golden tombs, and secrets whispered through eternity. Ancient Egypt, the land of the Nile, where stone met spirit and time itself bowed to human will. Yet, for all our modern machines and science, we still cannot explain how they achieved what they did. How did hands that knew no steel carve granite with surgical precision? How did minds without satellites align the pyramids so perfectly with the stars? How did a people, living thousands of years before us, harness knowledge that we are only beginning to rediscover? Egypt stands as a paradox, a riddle written in stone, daring every generation to solve it. And though centuries have passed, and countless explorers have dug beneath her sands, the truth remains elusive. What did they know that we have forgotten? What force drove them to build monuments that would outlive empires, beliefs, and even memory itself? Tonight, we journey into that mystery. The secrets of ancient Egypt that still confuse historians. For over 4,000 years, Egypt has stood as a monument to the brilliance and mystery of humankind. Her sands have buried and unveiled the rise and fall of empires, yet the land of the Nile remains as enigmatic today as it was when the first explorers beheld its wonders. The colossal pyramids, the perfectly preserved mummies, the silent temples carved with hieroglyphs that shimmer like ancient code, all seem to whisper a story that we have only half understood. Egypt's civilization did not simply evolve, it appeared, complete and magnificent, as though born from memory rather than invention. Across centuries, archaeologists have dug, historians have debated, and scientists have tested theories, but the more we uncover, the more the mystery deepens. How did a society living over 4 millennia ago master mathematics, astronomy, and engineering to such astonishing precision? How did they carve and move stones weighing hundreds of tons without the tools we now rely upon? How did they align monuments to the stars with accuracy we can barely match using modern instruments? Every discovery in Egypt seems to raise more questions than it answers. Beneath the grandeur lies something deeper, something almost timeless, as if this civilization was not just an origin point of human knowledge but a remnant of an earlier, forgotten chapter of humanity's story. The temples of Karnak, the tombs of the Valley of the Kings, the mysterious voids inside the Great Pyramid, all point to a truth that lingers just out of reach. This is not simply the story of a nation, but of an intelligence that challenges our understanding of history itself. Egypt stands as both a riddle and a mirror, reflecting our fascination with what we once were and what we might yet become. In this journey, we will explore the deepest enigmas of ancient Egypt, the technologies that defy explanation, the beliefs that intertwine with cosmic knowledge, and the anomalies that continue to confound the brightest minds on earth. For in the shifting sands of Egypt, time itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for humanity to remember what it once knew. The story of Egypt begins not with a gradual rise, but with an explosion of civilization that defies logic. Around 3100 BCE, in the fertile cradle of the Nile Valley, a culture emerged that seemed to appear fully formed. Within a single generation, human society leaped from scattered tribal life to organized cities, writing systems, mathematics, monumental architecture, and a vision of eternity carved in stone. No clear prelude exists, no slow evolution of tools or language leading to such complexity. It is as if knowledge itself was remembered rather than discovered. The first kings, the pharaohs of the early dynastic period, ruled over a people who already understood the stars, geometry, and the laws of harmony that would shape every temple and tomb to come. The suddenness of this transformation has long puzzled historians. Where did they learn the art of carving massive stones, each weighing dozens of tons, with a precision that modern engineers still struggle to replicate? Why does Egypt's earliest art already display a mastery of proportion and symbolism that later civilizations would imitate but never surpass? Some scholars point to the Nile as the teacher. Each year its flood brought both destruction and renewal, forcing its people to master irrigation, calendars, and social organization. Necessity, they say, gave birth to genius. Yet others whisper of something older, a civilization lost to time, whose fragments survived the great floods and found refuge along the river's edge. Could Egypt's founders have inherited the wisdom of a forgotten age, one that perished before history began to write itself? The early monuments offer tantalizing clues. At Saqqara, the step pyramid of Djoser rises like a stairway between heaven and earth. Built more than 4,500 years ago, it was the world's first large-scale stone structure. Beneath its base lies a labyrinth of corridors and chambers that still baffle archaeologists with their complexity. The very foundation of Egypt's architecture seems to have begun at its height, not its infancy. What we see in those early centuries is not the learning curve of a young culture, but the confident stride of one that already knew its place in the cosmos. Their art was not primitive. Their temples were not experiment. From the very beginning, Egypt seemed to remember how to build in harmony with the stars, as though following instructions written not by mortals, but by time itself. To walk through the ruins of early Egypt is to feel that something vast once moved through human hands, something beyond mere survival. It was as if they had inherited a torch from an unseen ancestor, lighting a civilization out of time. And as we move forward through history, the evidence becomes even stranger, for Egypt's monuments were not just grand, they were impossible. The question that has haunted scholars for centuries deepens with every stone uncovered. How did they do it? How did they build the impossible? The Great Pyramid of Giza rises from the desert like an eternal question. For over 4,000 years, it has stood untouched by time, weather, or war, as if carved not for an age but for eternity itself. To look upon it is to stare directly into the heart of mystery. Each stone block weighs anywhere from 2 to 80 tons, cut from quarries miles away, lifted, transported, and placed with such perfection that even a modern razor blade cannot slip between them. There is no mortar, no adhesive, only precision. How did they do it? The pyramid's base stretches over 13 acres, yet every corner aligns almost perfectly to true north. The margin of error is less than 1/20th of a degree. Even with lasers, satellites, and advanced surveying tools, our engineers today would struggle to replicate this alignment on such a scale. The structure itself is not perfectly square but intentionally skewed to correct for the curvature of the Earth, a detail that implies a mathematical understanding of planetary geometry thousands of years ahead of its time. The ancient builders had no steel, no wheels, and no cranes. Their copper tools could barely scratch granite, and yet entire chambers were hollowed out of it with mirrored precision. For centuries, historians have pointed to the theory of ramps, vast systems of mud brick and limestone stretching miles into the desert, as the means by which the stones were raised. But no evidence of such ramps has ever been found. Even if they did exist, the volume of material required to build them would have exceeded the pyramid itself. When construction was complete, these ramps would have had to be dismantled entirely, leaving no trace. Others suggest that the builders used a more ingenious approach. Some believe they floated the stones on barges through ancient canals that once connected the Nile to the plateau, then used counterweights and pulleys to lift them. There are those who speak of sound, frequency, and resonance, ideas born from the knowledge that many Egyptian temples were designed with acoustics so perfect that a single voice could echo through stone. Could the ancients have understood how to harness vibration as a force? The truth remains elusive, suspended between the logical and the impossible. The sheer scale of the project boggles the mind. To build the Great Pyramid today, even with cranes, trucks, and modern logistics, would require decades, billions of dollars, and an international workforce. The Egyptians accomplished it in 20 years. 20 years to move 2.5 million stones, each one placed with millimeter precision, aligned to the heavens. And the precision goes deeper still. The internal chambers of the Great Pyramid form geometric relationships that reflect mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio. The height multiplied by 1 billion equals the exact distance from Earth to the Sun. The base perimeter divided by its height produces a near-perfect representation of the circle's circumference. These are not coincidences. They are fingerprints of a mind that understood not just the Earth, but its place within the cosmos. Many scholars maintain that the pyramid was simply a tomb, a monument to a divine king. Yet no mummies, treasures, or inscriptions were ever found inside the Great Pyramid. Its internal passages are bare, silent, and steeped in precision that seems more functional than ceremonial. The granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber was too large to fit through the corridors, meaning it had to be placed before the chamber was sealed. Whatever purpose this structure once served, it was planned with a level of foresight that defies our current understanding of ancient capabilities. Perhaps the pyramid was not built for death at all, but for something far greater. Some researchers suggest it was an energy machine, a monument designed to harness the Earth's natural frequencies. Its chambers resonate at 440 Hz, a frequency that aligns perfectly with harmonic principles used in music and vibration. The placement of materials, limestone on the outside, granite within, suggests a deliberate design to conduct and amplify energy. Even the narrow shafts that lead from the king's chamber align with specific stars, as if the structure itself were a bridge between Earth and the heavens. Whether seen as a tomb, a power plant, or a cosmic instrument, the Great Pyramid remains an engineering marvel beyond explanation. Its builders mastered scale, precision, and harmony in ways we can admire but not fully reproduce. Modern construction relies on heavy machinery, yet they relied only on knowledge that seems to have vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. The more we study these stones, the more we sense that the true mystery of Egypt is not how they built, but how they knew. How did a civilization of farmers and craftsmen understand geometry, magnetism, and astronomy with such depth? What kind of wisdom guided their hands and their minds to create something that still confounds the modern world? The pyramids are not relics of the past. They are questions carved into the earth, reminders that human history may not be a straight line of progress, but a circle, turning again towards something once known and now forgotten. And as we move deeper into Egypt's enigma, we find that their understanding of the stars was as profound as their command of stone. To the ancient Egyptians, the sky was not a distant realm of cold lights, but a living map of creation itself. Every temple, every pyramid, every obelisk was built in conversation with the heavens. Their civilization was not simply placed on earth, it was mirrored from above. They called it the doctrine of as above, so below, a belief that the movements of the stars reflected the order of life, death, and rebirth on earth. When we study the ruins of ancient Egypt, we often focus on the artistry of their stone, the symmetry of their design, or the mystery of their construction. But look deeper and another truth emerges. These monuments were not only feats of engineering. They were instruments of astronomy. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, aligns not only to true north with incredible accuracy, but also to the belt stars of Orion. In ancient Egyptian belief, Orion represented Osiris, the god of death, resurrection, and eternal life. The pyramid's layout was not just practical. It was symbolic. It was a bridge between the realm of men and the eternal path of the gods. Thousands of years before telescopes, Egyptian astronomer priests tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and stars with remarkable precision. Their calendars were solar, lunar, and stellar all at once. The rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, marked the annual flooding of the Nile, the very heartbeat of Egyptian life. They noticed that this event shifted slowly over generations, and through that patient observation, they may have recognized what we now call the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that takes over 26,000 years to complete. If true, it means they were measuring celestial cycles spanning millennia, suggesting knowledge far beyond what we attribute to the ancient world. The Temple of Karnak, one of the grandest on Earth, is not only aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, but designed so that, once a year, the sun pierces the dark sanctuary and illuminates the statue of Ammonius Ra, the sun god himself. At Abu Simbel, deep in the south, the same miracle happens twice each year, precisely on the dates of Ramses II's birth and coronation. Such precision cannot be coincidence. It reveals a mastery of astronomy woven seamlessly into architecture, transforming stone into living calendars. At Dendera, the zodiac carved into the temple ceiling depicts constellations, planetary alignments, and even eclipses. Some researchers claim that it records star positions not from the time it was built, but from an era thousands of years earlier. Could the priests of Dendera have been preserving a memory from a forgotten epoch? The symbols they left behind suggest that Egypt's astronomy was not invented in isolation, but inherited, refined, and safeguarded through ages of renewal. Inside the Great Pyramid, narrow shafts rise from the king's and queen's chambers toward specific points in the sky. These so-called star shafts align with Orion and Sirius, representing the souls of kings ascending to join the divine. This was not mythology to the Egyptians. It was science expressed through sacred geometry. The pyramid itself was a cosmic machine designed to resonate with the heavens. The ancient Egyptians saw no division between science and spirit. For them, to understand the stars was to understand the divine order of existence. Their entire worldview was built upon harmony between the cosmos and the earth. Each sunrise was a rebirth, each season a cycle of death and renewal. The pharaoh was not just a ruler but the axis between heaven and earth, the living bridge that maintained balance in a universe of order and chaos. Modern scientists marvel at their accuracy, yet still struggle to explain the full extent of their astronomical knowledge. How did they align massive structures without compasses or telescopes? How did they know the length of the solar year to within minutes of modern calculations? How did they track celestial shifts so subtle they unfold over thousands of years? Some believe it was the result of meticulous observation over generations, knowledge passed down through an unbroken chain of priest astronomers. Others suspect something older still, an inheritance from a civilization that predated recorded history, one whose memory lingers only in myth and symbol. Whatever the source, Egypt's relationship with the stars reveals more than technical mastery. It reveals a mindset, one that saw humanity not as separate from the cosmos, but as part of it. Their architecture was not just aligned to the heavens. It was a reflection of it. The pyramids were not monuments to the dead, but eternal markers of the living sky. In the end, Egypt's lost science of the stars reminds us of something profound. Our ancestors did not merely watch the heavens. They listened to them. And in that harmony between earth and sky, they found a wisdom that continues to echo across time, waiting for us to remember what they once knew. To the ancient Egyptians, words were not simply tools of communication. They were forces of creation. Every symbol carved upon stone, every line of ink upon papyrus, was a spark of divine power. They called their writing Medunetjer, the language of the gods. To speak or inscribe it was not to describe the world, but to shape it. Hieroglyphs were far more than an alphabet. Each sign carried layers of meaning, a fusion of sound, image, and sacred mathematics. A single symbol could represent an object, a sound, an idea, or even a cosmic principle. The Egyptians believed that these symbols were alive, vessels for energy that connected the physical and spiritual world. Writing was an act of magic, a ritual that could bind reality itself. When a pharaoh's name was carved into stone, it was not just remembered, it was preserved in eternity. To erase a name was to destroy a soul. Modern linguists have deciphered the practical meaning of hieroglyphs, translating thousands of inscriptions that describe kings, rituals, and daily life. But beneath the surface, there are patterns that defy simple explanation. The geometry of the symbols, the symmetry of their arrangements, and their placement within temples often follow mathematical principles that mirror those found in nature and physics. The spiral of a lotus, the angle of a pyramid, the ratio of the golden mean, all are reflected within the written language. Each symbol seems to operate not only as a word but as a harmonic key, a frequency encoded in shape and sound. The Egyptians saw sound as a creative force. In their mythology, the universe was sung into existence by the god Thoth, who spoke the first words of creation. To them, language was vibration, and vibration was life. The spoken word carried the same resonance as music, capable of aligning the soul with the order of the cosmos. Recent studies have suggested that hieroglyphic compositions may encode acoustic properties, with inscriptions placed in resonant chambers where the voice would echo and amplify in perfect harmony with the symbols themselves. Some temples, such as Dendera and Abydos, are constructed with such precision that certain tones produce standing waves, filling the halls with a hum that seems almost supernatural. These structures were not only places of worship, they were sound chambers, designed for language to vibrate with divine frequency. To the Egyptian priest, reading hieroglyphs was an act of awakening. The mind did not merely interpret the symbol, it entered it. Each image was a portal between worlds, a reminder that thought and matter were reflections of one another. The writing of the gods was both spiritual and scientific, a system that merged consciousness with the laws of the universe. Some researchers believe these symbols encode principles that modern science is only now rediscovering. Concepts of vibration, resonance, and geometry are foundational to quantum physics and harmonic theory. The ancients may have understood, in their own symbolic way, that reality itself is a song of frequencies, and that by speaking or inscribing certain patterns, one could harmonize with the greater order of existence. Even now, scholars admit there are layers of hieroglyphic meaning we have yet to understand. The literal translations reveal history and culture, but the metaphysical core, the living mathematics beneath the art, remains hidden. What we call writing, they called life. What we call myth, they called science. To stand before the temple walls of Luxor or Abydos is to face thousands of symbols that seem to breathe. The figures of gods and stars, of serpents and suns, all converge into a symphony of meaning too vast for words alone. It is as if the stone itself is whispering, not to the mind but to the soul. The Egyptians believed that when language was aligned with truth, it became creation itself. Perhaps that is the real power of hieroglyph, not a code to be broken, but a living reminder that every word we speak carries weight, every thought we form shapes reality. The language of the gods was not lost. It lives on, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to listen again. In the temple of Dendera, deep within the crypts where sunlight never reached, a strange image adorns the walls. It shows figures holding elongated shapes that resemble glass bulbs, each connected by lines to a box-like object. Serpentine shapes flow through the bulbs as if representing currents of energy. To many, it is a symbolic carving of creation, a mythic depiction of light emerging from darkness. Yet to others, it looks remarkably like an electrical device, complete with filaments, conductors, and power sources. Mainstream historians dismiss the idea, insisting these are metaphors for divine energy, not literal electricity. But such interpretations cannot fully erase the questions raised by Egypt's astonishing precision in working with stone. The granite blocks used in temples and sarcophagi are some of the hardest materials on Earth. Yet they were carved, drilled, and polished with such accuracy that even modern diamond-tipped tools would struggle to achieve the same result. Without iron or steel, how did they do it? Granite, with a Mohs hardness rating of over 6, resists shaping by primitive tools. And yet, in Egypt, entire halls were constructed from it. Cylindrical drill holes spiral through the stone in a way that suggests high-speed boring, not hand chiseling. The marks left behind on certain artifacts reveal concentric grooves, as if cut by machinery rather than manual effort. Some of these grooves even display uniform depth and spacing, indicators of rotational cutting that implies advanced technique. One explanation offered by alternative researchers is that the Egyptians may have harnessed natural forms of energy that we no longer understand. This does not necessarily mean electricity in the modern sense, but perhaps vibration, resonance, and frequency, forces that exist everywhere, waiting to be tuned and directed. The Great Pyramid itself may provide clues. Studies have shown that its internal chambers resonate at specific frequencies when exposed to sound wave. These frequencies correspond to harmonic principles found in both music and physics. Could the pyramid have been designed to amplify vibration, channeling it through its limestone and granite structure? Some physicists speculate that such resonance could create standing waves of energy, capable of influencing matter in ways we have yet to replicate. If sound and vibration were their tools, it would explain more than just construction technique. Ancient Egypt's architecture was built not only with physical precision but with acoustic intent. In certain temples, a whisper spoken at one end can be heard perfectly at the other, while a chant within the main hall produces deep, sustained echoes that vibrate through the floor. Priests may have used this phenomenon during rituals, manipulating sound to alter consciousness, heal, or perhaps even move matter. Throughout Egypt, we find references to the concept of divine resonance. The hieroglyph for sound, heka, is the same word used for magic. To the Egyptians, magic was not superstition, it was science. It was the manipulation of unseen forces through understanding of vibration, geometry, and intention. The priests were not merely spiritual guides but scientists of energy, working in harmony with nature's hidden patterns. Could it be that their temples were more than places of worship? Perhaps they were machines, vast, resonant structures designed to generate or channel energy. The Great Pyramid's combination of materials is particularly intriguing. Limestone casing stones that insulate, granite chambers that conduct, and subterranean water channels that may have generated electromagnetic potential. The ancient Nile once flowed closer to the pyramids, and as it moved beneath the plateau, it could have produced piezoelectric currents through the quartz-rich stone. This theory remains speculative, yet it highlights how modern science is only beginning to understand the complexity of Egypt's design. At Dendera, the mystery deepens. The temple's carvings and underground passages hint at experiments with light and sound, with niches that seem designed to reflect or contain energy. In the crypts, traces of sootless ceilings have puzzled archaeologists for decades. How did the artisans illuminate their work without torches or open flames? Some propose mirrors, yet no residue of such systems has been found. Others wonder if the Egyptians had discovered a form of electrostatic or luminescent lighting, a possibility we can neither confirm nor completely dismiss. Across the ancient world, echoes of similar knowledge appear. The stone chambers of Malta, the megalithic temples of South America, and even Stonehenge all exhibit harmonic properties. Could these cultures have shared an understanding of the Earth's natural frequencies, of sound as a force of creation? Egypt, with its precision and grandeur, seems to represent the pinnacle of that forgotten science. In modern laboratories, researchers have begun exploring how vibration can move and shape materials, using sound waves to levitate small objects or manipulate water into geometric forms. The ancients may have witnessed these principles at work long before we gave them names. Their gods were often depicted holding rods, ankhs, and scepters, symbols that some believe represented tools of energy manipulation rather than ceremonial objects. Perhaps the power that built Egypt was not mechanical, but natural, a mastery of the planet's own rhythms, the pulse of the earth itself. They may have understood that every stone, every atom, hums with its own vibration, and that by aligning those vibrations through geometry, sound, and intention, matter could be shaped with astonishing precision. If this was their secret, it was not lost by accident. It was hidden, encoded in temples, carved into walls, whispered through myth. A science not of domination, but of harmony. A forgotten language of energy that blurred the line between physics and faith. And as we stand among the ruins, surrounded by silent monuments that have endured for millennia, we cannot help but wonder. What if Egypt's greatest power was not what it built, but what it understood? What if their true technology was consciousness itself, the ability to perceive the unseen, to tune into the frequencies that bind the universe together? The answers may still lie beneath the sand, or perhaps, within the vibrations of the stones themselves, waiting for us to remember how to listen. Beneath the golden surface of Egypt, under the familiar silhouettes of its pyramids and temples, lies a hidden world few have ever seen. It is a world of darkness and silence, a labyrinth buried under thousands of years of sand and secrecy. For centuries, stories have persisted of tunnels that stretch beneath the Giza plateau, chambers sealed since the dawn of civilization, and halls said to hold the lost records of humanity's forgotten past. Recent technology has breathed new life into those legends. In 2017, a team of scientists using cosmic ray imaging detected a massive void inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, a chamber larger than the Grand Gallery itself. Its purpose remains a mystery. No passage leads to it, and no tools or artifacts have been found that could explain how it was built. The discovery sent ripples through the archaeological world. For the first time in millennia, something entirely new had been found inside a monument thought to have yielded all its secrets. What could it be? A hidden chamber for rituals? A symbolic passage to the afterlife? Or perhaps something more profound, something intentionally concealed? Beneath Giza's sands, countless tunnels snake through the bedrock. Some lead to known tombs and burial shafts, while others end abruptly, as if blocked or intentionally sealed. Explorers have reported chambers cut with mathematical precision, often showing signs of extreme heat, as though subjected to forces far beyond the scope of primitive tools. Some of these spaces seem designed not for human passage but for resonance, for sound and energy to flow as if the architecture itself were alive. Legends speak of the Hall of Records, a mythical archive said to contain the knowledge of a pre-dynastic civilization, perhaps even the remnants of an earlier age of humanity. Ancient texts describe it as a library of stone tablets buried near the Sphinx, waiting to be discovered when the world is ready. Some believe the great statue itself guards the entrance. Beneath its paws, explorers have found sealed chambers, and though excavations have been attempted, Egyptian authorities have long restricted deeper exploration, fueling rumors of deliberate secrecy. At Saqqara, the vast necropolis south of Cairo, recent excavations have revealed networks of underground tunnels extending for miles, some connecting to burial chambers older than the pyramids themselves. Inside the Serapeum of Saqqara, massive granite sarcophagi lie in dark corridors, each weighing over 70 tons. They were carved with astonishing precision, their interiors polished to perfection, yet no mummies or human remains have ever been found inside. What were they for? Scholars claim they were meant for the sacred Apis bulls, but no inscriptions confirm this. Others wonder if these giant stone boxes served another function entirely, perhaps as storage for energy, knowledge, or something far more mysterious. Explorers who have ventured into these tunnels describe the atmosphere as almost otherworldly. The air is dense, the silence absolute, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. Some report sensations of static energy or the feeling of being watched. In these subterranean depths, time seems to dissolve. The walls are carved with geometry that echoes the design of the pyramids above, suggesting a mirrored architecture, a reflection of heaven and earth, above and below. It is possible that what lies beneath the sands was not meant for human eyes. Egypt's ancient builders often hid their most sacred knowledge underground, in sanctuaries accessible only to priests and initiates. The subterranean chambers of Dendera, the catacombs of Alexandria, and the winding tunnels beneath Abydos all point to a culture that believed wisdom was to be protected, not displayed. In the modern age, technology may soon unveil what the ancients worked so hard to conceal. Yet even with radar, imaging, and excavation, Egypt guards its secrets fiercely. Some discoveries are quickly sealed, others left unannounced. Official statements often deny the existence of deeper chambers or hidden archives, but whispers persist among local workers and independent researchers. There are things, they say, that the world is not ready to know. What if those buried chambers are not tombs, but vaults of memory? What if beneath the sands lies a record of a civilization that predated Egypt itself, a bridge to a forgotten era of human achievement? The idea may seem impossible, yet the evidence suggests we have barely scratched the surface of what lies below. As the sun sets over the Giza plateau, casting long shadows across the sand, one cannot help but wonder what stirs beneath. The earth holds more than dust and stone. It holds silence, waiting for someone to listen. Somewhere below, in the darkness, the past breathes, patient, ancient, and alive. In the heart of ancient Egypt, mythology was never just a collection of stories. It was a memory system, a living record of cosmic and earthly events, preserved through the language of gods and symbols. To the Egyptian mind, myth was not separate from science or history. It was how truth survived across the rise and fall of civilizations. The gods of Egypt were not merely figures of worship, but archetypes of forces that governed both heaven and earth. Ra, the sun god, journeyed across the sky each day only to descend into the underworld at night, battling chaos before being reborn with the dawn. To the modern observer, this may seem like poetry, but to the ancients, it described the very cycle of nature, the rhythm of life and death, the endless return of light after darkness. The myth of Ra was astronomy told as story. Among Egypt's most profound legends is that of Osiris, the god of resurrection. According to the ancient texts, Osiris was a wise and benevolent king who taught humanity agriculture, order, and law. But he was betrayed by his brother Set, torn to pieces, and scattered across the land. His wife, Isis, searched the world to gather his remains and bring him back to life. The resurrection of Osiris became the foundation of Egyptian belief in the afterlife and the immortality of the soul. But beyond its spiritual meaning, the story echoes a deeper memory, one that may stretch back to the dawn of civilization itself. Some scholars have noticed parallels between the Osiris myth and flood legends from cultures around the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, the biblical story of Noah, and even myths from South America all speak of a great deluge that destroyed an earlier world, leaving only fragments of knowledge to rebuild from. Could the dismemberment of Osiris be a metaphor for a cataclysm that shattered an ancient civilization, whose remnants gave birth to Egypt? The ancient texts known as the Pyramid Texts and the Book of the Dead describe the gods not as abstractions, but as rulers and teachers who walked among men. They taught astronomy, agriculture, and the measurement of the stars. The Egyptians believed their ancestors were descendants of these divine beings, who came from a sacred island that vanished beneath the waves. This island, called the Primordial Mound, was said to rise again when balance was restored to the world. The concept mirrors myths found across the globe: Atlantis in Greece, Dilmun in Sumer, and Shambhala in Asia, all speaking of an advanced culture destroyed by floods or fire. Perhaps these were not separate myths, but fragments of a single story remembered differently by each surviving people. The Egyptian version may have been the most carefully preserved, encoded in hieroglyphs and ritual to outlast even time itself. The constellations, too, were woven into this mythic memory. The Egyptians associated Osiris with Orion and Isis with Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Every year, the rising of Sirius heralded the flooding of the Nile, the event that gave life to Egypt. This celestial connection turned myth into calendar, story into science. The gods lived not only in temples but in the sky above, where their movements dictated the rhythm of life on earth. When viewed through this lens, Egyptian mythology becomes less like fantasy and more like encrypted data, an ancient attempt to preserve knowledge through allegory. The floods, the battles, the resurrections, all become metaphors for cosmic cycles, geological upheavals, and the rebirth of civilizations. The Egyptians were not just remembering their own history. They were remembering humanity's. It is possible that what we call myth was their way of protecting information too vast or too sacred to be spoken plainly. Stories of divine teachers could have been memories of wise survivors from an earlier world, individuals who carried fragments of lost knowledge into the rebuilding of a new age. The Egyptian priests, guardians of that knowledge, turned history into symbols so it could endure through poetry, ritual, and stone. In the Osiris myth, death is never final. Every ending is the beginning of renewal. That idea lies at the core of Egyptian civilization and perhaps at the core of human history itself. The pyramids rise like reborn mountains from a drowned age, monuments to a truth we have yet to fully understand. Maybe these myths are not fantasies of the past, but messages from it, whispering that we have lived through destruction before and learned how to begin again. As the desert wind sweeps across the Nile, and the stars of Orion rise once more above the horizon, one can almost hear the echoes of that forgotten memory. The gods were not lost. They were remembered in stone, in story, and in the night sky, waiting for us to read their message. Even in the age of satellites, drones, and DNA sequencing, Egypt continues to defy complete understanding. The more we uncover, the more questions seem to rise from beneath the sand. Modern science has peeled back layers of mystery that were once thought impenetrable, yet each discovery reveals that the ancient world still guards secrets too complex, too deliberate, to be coincidence. In 2017, a team of international researchers used cosmic ray imaging to scan the Great Pyramid of Giza. What they found stunned the world: a vast, hidden void stretching more than 30 meters long, sealed deep within the structure. Its purpose remains unknown. It is not aligned with any known chamber, and no entrance connects to it. Some believe it may have been a space for weight distribution, others that it was left deliberately hidden, perhaps a symbolic chamber or even a time capsule. But no one knows for certain. After 4,500 years, one of the most studied monuments on Earth still holds a secret untouched by time. Around the same period, researchers discovered small tunnels and cavities beneath the plateau of Giza using ground-penetrating radar. Many of these anomalies remain unexcavated, their depths too dangerous to explore. Yet their presence hints at a far more intricate network beneath the pyramids than previously imagined. Could these hidden passages connect to the lost chambers mentioned in ancient texts? Are they remnants of earlier phases of construction, or something much older that predates even the dynasties themselves? Elsewhere across Egypt, technology continues to reveal what human eyes cannot see. In the Valley of the Kings, LiDAR imaging has uncovered tombs buried beneath centuries of sediment, untouched since antiquity. Each new excavation rewrites fragments of history, but also deepens the mystery. How many more lie hidden? How vast is Egypt's buried world, still waiting in silence beneath the dunes? Inside museums, a different kind of enigma reside. Artifacts made of granite, diorite, and basalt bear marks that look eerily mechanical. Perfectly circular drill holes spiral with precision too consistent for hand tools. Flat planes mirror light with a polish that suggests high-speed cutting or advanced abrasives unknown in the Bronze Age. Conventional archaeologists attribute this to skill, patience, and the use of sand as an abrasive, yet many engineers who examine these relics see something else, evidence of technology that seems far ahead of its time. Even DNA research has added to the confusion rather than clarity. Studies on royal mummies like Tutankhamun have revealed complex genetic origins, connecting the pharaohs to regions as far as Europe and sub-Saharan Africa. This web of ancestry challenges the idea of Egypt as an isolated civilization. Instead, it hints at migrations, lost lineages, and cultural exchanges that predate written history. Perhaps Egypt was not a beginning, but a continuation, a convergence of peoples who carried with them the last fragments of an older world. Yet for all the advancements in science, certain questions remain hauntingly simple. Where are the records of how the pyramids were built? Why have no blueprints, sketches, or inscriptions ever been found detailing the construction of humanity's most enduring monument? The Egyptians recorded everything: births, offerings, rituals, and laws, but on the matter of how they achieved their greatest feat, there is only silence. Some researchers suggest the knowledge was sacred, passed down orally through priestly initiates and never meant for the uninitiated. Others believe the information was lost in the waves of time, perhaps during the collapse of the Old Kingdom, when famine and political chaos swept through the land. But there are those who whisper that the Egyptians themselves inherited the knowledge, preserving techniques whose true origin was already ancient even in their day. New anomalies only add to the intrigue. Thermal imaging has revealed heat signatures in the Great Pyramid inconsistent with its surrounding stone, suggesting cavities or chambers yet to be explored. In the sands around Saqqara, archaeologists have unearthed entire burial complexes that defy previous timelines, structures built with methods unknown to their supposed era. Each find reshapes our perception, turning certainty into speculation. Even Egypt's mummies have begun to challenge the boundaries of science. CT scans have shown surgical procedures and dental work that appear far more advanced than expected. In one case, a mummy displayed what looked like a metal implant in the knee joint, a technology not seen again until modern times. The more we study, the more the line blurs between ancient mystery and modern possibility. And yet, perhaps what is most extraordinary is how Egypt continues to evolve before our eyes. Every season brings new excavations, new discoveries, and with them, new contradictions. A lost city near Luxor recently emerged from the sand, its streets and workshops astonishingly well preserved. Pottery and jewelry suggest a vibrant urban life that thrived centuries earlier than once thought possible. Just when scholars believe they have mapped the full story, the sands shift once again, reminding us how little we truly know. It is as if Egypt herself is alive, revealing her secrets slowly, cautiously, as if testing our readiness to understand. For every answer we find, a new mystery arises, deeper and older than the last. Perhaps that is Egypt's greatest power. Not the monuments of stone, but the enduring ability to keep humanity searching, questioning, and dreaming. Even now, as satellites orbit above and scanners probe below, we are only beginning to scratch the surface. Somewhere under those golden sands lies the next great revelation, waiting for the moment when we are ready to see it. For centuries, the deserts of Egypt have watched silently as empires rose and fell, as generations came and went, and as human knowledge reached ever higher, believing itself new. Yet beneath the weight of time and the sweep of the winds, the stones of Giza, Luxor, and Saqqara seem to whisper a different truth. They tell us that what we call progress may not be a straight path forward, but a circle that brings us back to the beginning. At the heart of Egypt's mystery lies a realization so humbling that it reshapes how we see our place in history. We are not the first to wonder about the stars, or to search for harmony between science and spirit. We are not the pinnacle of human achievement, but merely its latest caretakers. The ancients did not build blindly. They built with purpose, with an understanding that the universe was alive and that its laws could be mirrored in stone, sound, and symbol. When we gaze upon the pyramids, we are not just looking at monuments to the dead. We are looking at living mathematics, a dialogue with eternity. Every angle, every proportion, every alignment is part of a greater code, a message carved into the earth. The same ratios that define the pyramid's geometry define the patterns of nature, from the spirals of galaxies to the structure of DNA. These are not coincidences. They are signatures of a unified understanding of reality, a science of the cosmos expressed through art and architecture. Perhaps the true brilliance of Egypt was not in its technology, but in its consciousness. The builders of the Nile may have remembered something we have forgotten, that the material and the spiritual are not opposites, but reflections of one another. To them, a temple was not merely a structure, but a living organism. A pyramid was not a tomb, but a tool harmonizing with the earth's frequencies and aligning with the stars. Their civilization thrived not because they conquered nature, but because they listened to it. In every story of gods and rebirth, in every carving of stars and serpents, Egypt left a map, not to treasure but to understanding. A guide for future generations to rediscover what it means to live in balance with the cosmos. Perhaps their secrets are not lost at all. Perhaps they have always been here, hidden in plain sight, encoded in geometry, proportion, and myth, waiting for minds ready to perceive them again. And that may be the greatest revelation of all, that Egypt's genius was not alien, but profoundly human. It was born from the same curiosity, the same hunger to know, that drives us today. The pyramids stand as mirrors of our potential, silent reminders that the human story is far older and deeper than we dare to imagine. The sands whisper softly to those who listen, telling us that we have not reached the peak of knowledge, only the edge of memory. And if we dare to look beyond the limits of what we think we know, we may find that the answers we seek about the universe, and about ourselves, were carved into the stone of Egypt long before history began. Time buries, but it never truly erases. The winds of the Sahara may cover the monuments, the dynasties may fade into dust, yet the soul of Egypt endures. The Nile still flows as it did 5,000 years ago, carrying with it the same rhythm that once guided pharaohs, priests, and builders of impossible dreams. Its waters have seen the rise of kingdoms and the silence that followed their fall, and still it moves, whispering the same question to every generation that stands upon its banks. Egypt is more than history. It is a mirror held up to the mystery of human existence. Every temple, every tomb, every hieroglyph carved into stone is a fragment of a forgotten language, a story we have only begun to remember. It reminds us that progress is not always forward, that knowledge is not always new, and that wisdom can sleep beneath the sand for millennia, waiting for us to listen again. The pyramids, the stars, the gods, and the myths all converge into a single truth that humbles the modern mind. For all our science and technology, we are still seekers, still children before the vastness of time. The ancients did not merely build monuments. They built messages, invitations to wonder, carved into eternity. Perhaps that is Egypt's greatest gift. Not the answers to how or why, but the reminder that the search itself is sacred. The more we uncover, the deeper the mystery becomes. The more we learn, the more we realize how little we truly know. And so the question endures, echoing across centuries, through the shifting dunes and the endless flow of the Nile. Who were we, really? And who might we become again, when we finally remember,